This is the statement of purpose that got me into Oxford. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaelyn. I'm a master's student at the University of Oxford studying history, and in the fall I'm going to begin my PhD in history and African American studies at Yale University. I make vlogs and informational videos about higher education, graduate school, my experiences as a graduate student, funding, how to get into schools, and everything in between. Today I'm going to be talking all about how I got into Oxford University for my master's as an international student. At the end of the video, I'm actually going to be reading my statement of purpose to you guys, the one that actually got me into Oxford. And if you guys enjoy this one, then please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel because there's a lot of content coming your way. I made a video about a year ago when I got into Oxford talking about my experience applying and why I thought I got in. But now that I have been an admissions consultant for about a year, I have a lot more insight into the admissions process. So I have a lot more information for you guys on why and how I got into Oxford. So the video is going to be broken up into a couple different sections. We're going to be talking about my GPA, letters of recommendation, the written sample that I used for my master's application. We're going to talk about my statement of purpose and all of that. So go ahead and stick around if you want to find out how I got into Oxford and how you might be able to as well. So let's first talk about GPA. So I'm talking about grade point average, and this is on a 4.0 scale because I came from an American university. This is going to be on a slightly different scale if you're from the UK, so just keep that in mind if you're trying to compare your scores to mine. So the first 2 years of university, I was in community college, or at least the credits for my first 2 years were applied from my community college education, and I had a lower GPA. I had a 3.5 to 3.6 GPA in community college, and when I graduated from UCLA, I had a 3.9 GPA. I graduated with highest honors with my honors thesis and also graduated with Latin honors. I had a very high GPA, and as an admissions consultant, I would recommend that you have a minimum of a 3.6 or 3.7 GPA to apply to Cambridge or Oxford for a master's degree. Though you can apply with a lower GPA, they tend to kind of create a threshold where they will review applications and where you are more likely to be successful. That is not to say that you shouldn't apply if you have a slightly lower GPA, but you're going to have to be strategic about how you market your statement of purpose, your written sample, and your experiences. And my recommendation for anybody that wants to apply to Oxford is to make sure that you have the best grades possible. It is an elite university and they do look at grades very critically, so just make sure that you are in the best position possible when you go to apply. Next, we're going to talk about academic CV, or your resume. So on my resume, I had my academic achievements, the schools I had attended, all the way from high school up to college, and that included the community colleges I attended, my GPA, and all of that. I also mentioned if I was ever on the dean's list. I was on the dean's list a couple different quarters and semesters, so I did include that in my academic CV. I mentioned the travel grant I received from the UCLA history department while I was a student there. I did not yet have the highest honors ranking for my honors thesis, so that was not mentioned, but my honors thesis was listed, as well as my professional achievements, my professional experiences. I had a professional equestrian career before coming into academia, so I listed my work experience as a professional equestrian, as well as my professional experience while I was in college. So I had some administrative roles while I was in college, and those were listed in my CV. So having a well thought out CV is important. Having professional experiences is important, and it will help you in the long run. But the things that are the most important for you to highlight are your leadership skills, your administrative skills, and your research skills. So make sure that that is at the forefront of your thoughts when you are writing your CV, so that way you are able to market yourself in the best way possible. Next, let's talk about letters of recommendation. I get questions about this all the time. How do you reach out to professors, and how do you reach out to professors once you've left a university? So first of all, if you're still a student, make sure you develop those relationships with your professors. Make sure that you go to office hours and that you get involved in their research, that you get involved with independent research projects if you can. And just make sure you're developing those relationships over time. For me, I had very good relationships with multiple of my professors. I ended up getting a letter of recommendation from my advisor for my undergraduate thesis, a professor that I had really enjoyed taking classes with. I only ended up taking one class with her, but she got to know me quite well. I had another professor that I had taken 2 classes with, and then I believe I also had a 4th recommender. So I had a total of 4. I believe that was the amount that was required. Make sure that your recommenders know you well, that they know your research, they know who you are as a student. But if you've left university and it is a couple years later and you've decided to go for your master's, then I would reach back out to professors that you worked with in the past, reintroduce yourself. So say, "Dear Dr. Blank, I took your class in 2017 on blank subject. I am looking to apply to master's programs and I was wondering if you'd be willing to write me a letter of recommendation. I have attached my CV, an essay from your previous class, and my statement of purpose." Make sure that you give them as much information as possible to write you a positive letter of recommendation, especially if they don't know you super well one-on-one. I didn't end up needing to send any of my essays or anything to my professors because they knew me really well, so that wasn't something that was required of me, but I know that professors generally would like you to send a paper from their class, your CV, as well as your statement of purpose. Next, let's talk about written sample. So I ended up sending the historiographical section of my honors thesis. You want to make sure that you are sending your best piece of writing, first of all, but 2, that you're sending writing that demonstrates your ability to do independent research, that you know how to use the methodologies of your subject, that you know how to cite properly, all of those things. Make sure that there are no grammatical mistakes, that it is very clear, that your prose are very concise, and that it includes work from the field. So make sure that you are referencing people that they are going to be knowledgeable of. So one thing that I get asked a lot is if you are changing subject areas or if your research has nothing to do with your undergraduate research. So my example is that my undergraduate research focused on the social histories of enslaved persons that ran to the British during the American Revolution, and my research now is very much focused on legal histories of enslavement. So I went from social histories to legal histories, which doesn't seem like that big of a jump, but there are issues related to methodologies that you're going to then explain in your statement of purpose. Even though I was writing a paper on social histories that didn't necessarily apply to my master's work, I knew that the methodologies that I was using and that the independent research that I had done was supportive of my claim to want to do a master's. So just make sure that even if you're in a different subject area than the program that you are applying for, just make sure that you send them a really well-structured written sample of about 10 pages that demonstrates your ability to do research, to write clearly, and to be a good student. And now we've reached the part of the video that I'm sure you guys are all waiting for. I am going to actually read you guys my statement of purpose from when I applied to Oxford. I'm gonna bleep out certain information, but this is the statement of purpose that got me into Oxford. So I have it here on my iPad, and it states, "In the Master of Studies program in U.S. History, I hope to research how enslaved women sought legal autonomy and freedom for themselves and their children throughout the British Atlantic world. My research will explore how the implementation of partus sequitur ventrum, a law which allowed the offspring of a slave to take on the status of their mother, affected legal cases where enslaved women sought freedom in the American colonies and mainland Britain. I am most interested in demonstrating the difference between partus sequitur ventrum in the American colonies and partus sequitur patrum in Britain in maintaining slavery and the control of women's bodies. In a master's program, I will begin my research by conducting a general survey of legal documents housed within the National Archives CO5 collection, the British Library's Middlesex County records, and additional online databases. I will focus my attention on cases brought to court in mainland England, as well as the American colonies, beginning with the case of Elizabeth Key in Virginia and Catherine Ocker in Britain. Following the survey, lasting approximately 2 months, I will focus my research on more significant and representative cases which occurred before and after the implementation of partus sequitur ventrum. For the next 3 months, I will review the secondary source materials related to these cases and emancipation in the 17th and 18th centuries. My initial secondary source list includes Florian Scheilen's Black People in Britain, 1555 to 1833, Jennifer Morgan's Partus Sequitur Ventrum, Law, Race and Reproduction in Colonial Slavery, and Manisha Shinaz's The Slave's Cause, The History of Abolition. During the final 4 months of my degree, I will write, edit, and complete my master's dissertation under the supervision of a faculty professor. My proposal for this master's project builds upon an ongoing interest in slavery in early America and the struggle for emancipation. I am currently writing an honors thesis which focuses on Virginia slaves that joined the British Army and Navy during the American Revolution. My thesis seeks to reconsider the use of census data collected at the conclusion of the war in the Book of Negroes in order to analyze the composition of slaves that were granted their freedom. My work examines how slaves in Virginia envisioned the war as an opportunity for liberation, focusing on what risks they took, such as traveling with family, in order to join the British Army. My master's dissertation proposes to take a different approach to studying acts of individual liberation, this time through the legal action of enslaved women. My aim is to uncover the small acts of resistance performed by enslaved persons in order to demonstrate their ongoing desire for physical and legal autonomy. My current research requires a close examination of secondary and primary sources in order to establish a well-rounded historiographical review, as well as implement my own analysis of census data. I have worked closely with several professors within the History and African American Studies departments, as well as the research staff at the UCLA Library. This past year, I have learned to utilize online archives, and last summer, after receiving a travel grant from the UCLA History Department, I visited the Library of Congress and the University of Virginia to gain experience working with source material in person. I have now taken graduate level courses in order to strengthen my analytical and research skills so that I may be better prepared for my ongoing studies. While most of my previous research has focused on social histories related to slavery, my time at Cambridge last summer altered my future academic goals. While at Cambridge, I studied English common law and criminal law, which sparked a fascination in comparative legal history. It is my ongoing mission to perform focused research on the social and legal histories of slavery before going on to obtain my legal and doctoral degrees so that I may pursue a degree in legal history. The Master of Studies program in U.S. History at the University of Oxford is best suited for my research interests and goals. I can complete my project during the 9-month time frame and the modules offered. Particularly the core course on historiography, the optional course on North American women's and gender history, and individual supervision are essential to my research. Oxford offers the archival resources, staff, and coursework that will provide me with a better understanding of how to read, analyze, and implement legal documents in my historical research. Oxford's Bodleian Law Library, the British Library, and the National Archives in Kew house several volumes of the necessary legal court records I need in order to begin my research project, including the Middlesex County records, which include the case of Catherine Ocker. At Oxford, I am most interested in working with, due to her research on gender and reproductive freedom in the Dr. recent publication on and closely aligns with the subject of my research. With Dr. guidance, I will have the opportunity to build upon my own knowledge of women in the American colonies and extend the scope of my knowledge to reflect the legal history of enslaved women throughout the British Atlantic world. I hope to return to the UK, study at Oxford, and obtain my master's so I may broaden the scope of my research, improve my skills as a scholar, and prepare myself for a future career in legal academia. So that was quite a mouthful. That took a minute, but I wanted to show you guys how I wrote my statement of purpose. I have another video coming up soon on how to write a statement of purpose versus a personal statement and a research proposal. So if that's something you guys would benefit from and you would like to see, please leave a comment down below, as well as add any suggestions you have for future videos. I love hearing your guys' feedback and being able to incorporate that in my future content. So we've now reached the end of the video. I think that a large part of the reason I believe that I got into Oxford was due to my written sample as well as the type of research I was doing. It closely aligned with the advisor that I wanted to work with, and I'm very glad that I managed to, one, get into the program, but also was able to attend. If your dream is to go to Oxford for postgraduate study, I offer one-on-one admissions consultation services. You can check it out on my website down below. I also offer a free admissions masterclass once a month where I talk about the admissions process and how to get into the top schools. And if you guys have any other individual questions, I also offer bi-weekly office hours for up to 10 people to ask questions one-on-one with me over Zoom. So those are the resources I offer, and they are down below if you guys want to sign up and check it out. And that is it for today's video. I hope you guys found it useful, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, everyone.